Barb with Inspire Me 360 here, and in this video I want to discuss a little bit about self-discovery and the shadow self. So doing your own deep dive and working on the things that you have to fix, the things that trigger you. So oftentimes when we are experiencing the world, looking out into the world and feeling somewhat victimized, okay, it's very, very easy to fall into this negative vortex of the mind, or this negative, sort of spinning type of thinking. And I'm qualified to talk about this because I've had it happen to myself. I've experienced it, and it definitely would be for me a type of mental dialogue that was prevalent definitely in my younger years. But I see its reflection in a lot of individuals, and I also know how difficult it was for me to work through these pervasive negative thought patterns that I had. And so I want to break them down for you, okay? So oftentimes when we are dealing with any particular heavy situation in life, okay, we can start to get into a mindset that is spiraling towards low vibrational thoughts. And the way that the mind works is that when you start to kind of ping to negativity, the mind starts to reach out into its database essentially and back up sort of the predominant thought flow that's happening. So let's say again you've lost your job and you're feeling kind of frustrated, maybe you've gone through a breakup, okay? And you start, or the mind starts adding up all of the reasons why your life isn't good, you're unworthy, nobody likes you, nobody cares about you, the world is against you. And again, when we get into this frame of mind and this type of thinking, it's very easy to start adding up all of the reasons why, again, you are not worthy of love, you're not worthy of joy, and that essentially the external world is a system set up against you. And it doesn't matter what circumstance you come from, it doesn't matter how much abundance you truly have, how much actual love is around you. If the brain is going into this negative vortex of thinking, there's almost nothing that can stop it other than, again, your own attention to detail. So again, you have to kind of pull yourself out of this negative mindset and start realizing why you might be doing this, okay? For myself, in my younger days, I was doing it because I wasn't ready to do my own work. Okay, it was easier for me to play the victim and to pile up all the reasons why I had been dealt a bad hand and why I really, was not going to make it, and I wasn't going to be able to achieve the things I wanted because I had this long list of negative thought patterns piled up in my system. My system would play over this type of thought analysis very daily, okay? And the other thing that started to happen in terms of my own thinking is that I became very comfortable with this low vibrational state. So I very much understood kind of mucking around in this lower vibrational thought world, and you can romanticize it. So we see this play out in all of the Shakespearean dramas, or even when we watch movies and TV shows, there is a certain almost therapeutic element of watching a tragedy, and we get to express an extreme amount of emotion when we get caught up in the tragic scenario. So on some level, with these low vibrational thought forms, we are feeling, okay? It helps us to feel connected when we're feeling anything. And so sometimes the only way that we're able to connect with the world is to go into this very low vibrational victim mentality that again is quite a story or a tragic dialogue. And I don't want to discount this, okay? I don't want to say in the human journey or the journey of seeking and self-evolution that there isn't a purpose for this, because again, it's kind of the descent. It's the aspect of the mind going into this descended lower state to understand a higher state, okay? And so I'm actually going to quote Carl Jung here, and he says, no tree, it is said, can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell. And so essentially what that statement is alluding to is the fact that there is purpose in the descent. There is a real element of learning when we go to these lower states of consciousness. We really understand the breadth of emotion and the depth of emotion. And from tragedy, we actually can achieve a higher level of joy and bliss and magnificence. And the reason why that is because we understand its opposite. You know, if you've ever experienced something that's really incredibly difficult in your life, so when we lose a loved one, or you know, a certain era ends, whether it's a marriage or the ending of a job, or the, you know, anything that feels like it's ripping us apart at our core, what happens is it's essentially these lower vibrational states are breaking us open. So they're opening up. A lot of times what it's doing is opening up our heart center and then our third eye, in the sense that we have to start seeking. Because when we talk about the state of rock bottom, so when any of us actually hit our rock bottom, and there's multiple ways where we can do this. Again, sometimes it is the passing of a loved one, it's the loss of friend groups, it's, you know, addiction, abuse, violence. There's a multitude of ways that these lower vibrational states can play out in terms of the landscape of our lives. But what is so important is that when we are hitting one of these obstacles, or if we are in this lower state of consciousness, that we start to utilize our higher self, so this higher plane of thinking, and we start to evaluate things. So really, when you are at a rock bottom state, it's also a point where you're going to put yourself under a microscope and you're going to do what I call shadow work. And that essentially means that you're going to have to start dissecting the pieces and parts of yourself that do not serve you. Because a lot of times it is our programming, our societal programming that has been instituted by our parents, okay? And not to say that our parents or grandparents or family or society is completely broken, but there are things that as we go through time, we want to level up. We want to come to a higher state of expression. And the reason why we want to level up or elevate ourselves is because, again, there is a beauty in feeling joy, in feeling bliss, in having life unfold in a magical, wonderful, stable, whole way. And we don't have to continually defer to this tragedy or some violent escapade. It doesn't have to be that way. We've done this for millennia as human beings. You know, we've lived out these crazy stories. Like, our human story is just absolutely crazy. If you look at the wars, the pain, the destruction. I was watching a documentary the other day about the witch trials. Just blows my mind what human beings have done to one another, and they don't think that it's absolute insanity. And again, whether it is this group of people fighting that group of people, or, you know, having some sort of a nemesis that we have to attack against, okay? You know, whether in the Crusades it was women who were the witches, or, you know, we can attack all sorts of different races and people for their sexual orientation. There's a myriad of ways that the human consciousness can find find, for some reason, a valiant way to attack each other. You know, there's wars in the name of God. There's, you know, abuse in the name of righteousness that's written on a page. I mean, I'm not discounting that some behavior might be lower vibrational or distorted, or what I would call unconscious behavior. You know, even if we're talking about the way that human beings express in terms of their sexuality, okay? If there's a partnership and it's not done through the mechanism of divine love, what is divine love? You know, it's innocent, it's kind, it's coming from a place of devotion, okay? If you're entering into any other union and joining your body with another individual and it's not under the highest vibrational expression, well, yes, it's going to be somewhat more, I don't want to, low vibrational, okay? It's going to be more primal. And is that good or bad? It's learning, right? And again, we are told not to judge others. And I think that this is something that really should be a fundamental principle, because when we start to, with a very limited vantage point, cast judgment on others without knowing their entire story and the story of all of the others involved, we start moving towards a very slippery slope. And judgment begets some sort of semblance of a reason for attack. But again, anytime that attack happens, it's based on an incomplete story. And then you try to wrap it in a package of righteousness. It's just not, okay? And this is, again, when we look, the journey has to be an individual one, okay? We have to look at who and what we are, and we can't do it for others. Here's the other thing, okay? When you start looking at another human being and saying, this is what's wrong with you, this is what you're doing incorrectly, you know, I see this, you did that. Again, it's going to happen. I'm not saying that this kind of dialogue doesn't happen, but the journey is an individual one, and you start to grow when you actually take that projection and mirror it back. Because the only individual on the entire planet that knows your entire journey and has been there every step of the way, from the start to the finish of you, is you. And so the only individual who accurately understands how to evaluate your progress is you. And so you have to start looking at the self in a very honest way. You have to take responsibility when you have done wrong. You have to take responsibility when you have done right. You have to look at the shadows that are within yourself and have the courage to say, I can do this better. What is the highest way I could have seen this situation? And also, again, give a time for rest. You cannot always be hammering down on yourself either. There is a time when you have to just let it all go. Balance. So the key principle here with all growth is an intelligent balance that we see, that lens. That intelligent balance is the lens that we start to observe ourselves and the world at large with. And it also comes with a high level of what I'm going to call temperance. And so I'm going to explain that a little bit more. What I mean by temperance is a patience with yourself and a patience with others. Slow and steady wins the race, okay? When we rush in with this attack mentality, no matter what circumstance we're looking at, whether it's a spousal situation where it's, a little insignificant fight, whether it's issues with grandparents, issues with parents, issues in the workplace, greater issues in terms of political issues, group mentalities, okay? When we have one group upset at another group, or racial tensions between countries, okay? When we rush in and we make decisions, first of all, from a position of ego or anger or, distortion, so not really understanding all of the pieces, we make bad decisions. And those decisions have consequences and they hurt people. So the ripple effect of these kind of decisions means mass chaos, violence, attack, distortion. And again, the way that we create a more beautiful world is with working with ourselves first, okay? And I truly believe that we need to adjust our educational systems. We need to have these kind of teachings for self-regulation and balance and mental stability put right into the curriculum for children from a young age. Perhaps they come from a home where these things are not taught. And to me, that would be the simplest thing to help achieve an equilibrium and a peace here on planet Earth, is take these 12 years that children are in schools. I mean, I own schools, so I know a lot about curriculum. I've created over 80 programs. I know about what it means to create curriculum. And I think it would be very, very easy from a global standpoint to create curriculum based on peace, love, kindness, mental stability, meditation, dealing with things like anxiety, depression, embedding these fundamental skills into the human consciousness and into our human family. But again, I'm not in that level of government. I'm not a regulator. I can only give an opinion. Okay, but I do know that anytime that we have chaos out manifesting in our world, we have to, as a responsible person, if we want to fix anything, we have to look at the self. And the minute that we start to fix some of the distortions that are out there in the quantum field, things start to adjust. And yes, if we start to adjust on that micro level diligently, daily, it starts to reverberate out to the macro. It starts, just like there can be mass psychosis, which is what I feel war is, when a society gets to a tipping point where it's complete distortion, a sort of mass psychosis happens throughout the population, and we have wars and people do things that are unspeakable, unthinkable, and then you stand back from something like the Holocaust and you go, what on earth happened here? How did we get so far away from our core and our center? But the truth of the matter is that, again, it's when we step away from that self-reflection and the mechanism of adherence to the internal journey, okay? And that's what spirituality is. I don't care what book you read. Spirituality is that internal journey of seeking for a higher expression of consciousness. And consciousness directed through the three-dimensional avatar body. This body that we have is temporal, okay? We get it. We don't know how long we get it for. It has its senses, its five senses. We can experience the world, but essentially for consciousness to stream through this organic body, it is an avatar body. We are learning through it, okay? And so we utilize our physical reality to learn. And this is what, again, is so crucial to what we're seeing play out in terms of Earth right now. Also, okay, so this mass consciousness, a lot of what we see happening globally is extremely superficial. extremely. So everybody is worried about the cars, the way they look, everything that is outside of the self. And I'm not saying by any means that there aren't individuals that are seekers and spirituality and everything else, but it's not commonplace like it was, 100 years ago or 200 years ago when religion was so much part of daily life. And that can kind of circle back to religion itself, the institution itself, what within any church has been distorted, because there are distortions. When we have, issues with sexual abuse, with financial abuses, with power abuses, it doesn't matter what the institution is. If those things are happening in schools, in churches, in government, whatever it may be, it is a distortion of the original reason why that institution was created. Because whether it is a country, whether it is, like I said, a government system, a company, a religion, whatever that institution is, usually they're founded on decency and good principles in the beginning. And then as things infiltrate them, which are again the common distortions of humanity, vanity, greed, violence, all the different things, power, that hunger for power, whatever it is, these are dominant human traits that are pervasively unraveling things continually here on planet Earth. And so what do? Do we give up? Is it hopeless? Do we just say, oh my goodness, whatever, let's just smoke a joint or drink ourselves into a stupor and pretend that we don't want to enter into this questioning? I would say not. I think that, again, circle it back to the individual. What can you do as the individual? I've always tried to look at life through this vantage point. Be kinder, be more helpful, do your best, learn more, seek more. Really put the magnifying glass on your own actions, your own manipulations, your own distortions. How are you affecting the collective? What did you do today? Neville Goddard is, really worth studying. I love his work. But there's also this thing that he talks about revision therapy or revising your day. And that's essentially where you go back, and it's a very internal journey, but you look at the day and how you lived it, and you see where you could have done it better. And you go through and you play it through the cinematic, expression of the mind, that part when you kind of go into that daydreaming state and you replay and you say, I should have fixed this and I should have fixed that and I could have done this better. And then hopefully through this technique, when you are presented with a similar situation on the next day, you're going to pay attention, you're going to be changing something about your consciousness, and you're going to be working with the shadow self. So again, the purpose of why I'm making these videos is, of course, the more individuals, or the greater the number of individuals that start to do this work, the more beautiful we're going to find life is here, the more pleasant our experiences will be with our brothers and sisters here on planet Earth, and the more we will feel joy and we will elevate our vibration. Because again, it's all, everything is energy, everything is vibration. So we are here to pay attention to who and what we are and how we are out manifesting our internal worlds, and we're here to grow and become a better version of ourselves. So again, wishing you all a very, very wonderful day, productive day, and hopefully you found some of this insight helpful.